Hi, everybody. You are listening to the Procure Smarter podcast. And today we are going to be talking to Mr. Lindsay Adams, who is fascinating and knows all things business relationship building and networking. So stay tuned for that. Hi, Lindsay.
Hello, Sharon. How you doing?
How are you?
I am really well. What about you?
I'm good. Thank you very much for joining me.
It's my absolute pleasure. Sharon, remind me, where are you in the world?
I am in Greenville, South Carolina.
Greenville, South Carolina. I've never been there.
It is a very beautiful, but a very small town.
Yeah, I think I Googled it last time, after our initial chat, just to find where you were. I've been to many places in the US, but not to South Carolina yet.
Well, you are welcome. We're very close to Asheville. We're very close to the mountains and about 4 hours from the ocean.
Okay, cool.
Well, thank you I'm very excited. I was thrilled when you agreed to do this with me.
Well, delighted to create some win-win for both of us.
Well, nice. Well, let's start. I did some research. You have an amazing amount of accolades and awards to your name. Let's see here. One of them, you were awarded the Medal of the Order of Australia in January of 2020.
Yeah, that's a big deal. That's the fourth highest civil honor that you can get in this country. So, and I'm the only professional speaker in the world to be recognized by their country for services to the industry. So lots of my peers have won lots of awards,
right,
but they're all from speaking associations.
Right.
So it's a truly unique honor.
That is amazing. I mean, I didn't even know there was such a thing out there in that kind of an industry. So that's pretty amazing.
Well, it's not in the industry. This is a.
It's not industry specific.
National award, yeah. So on Australia Day, which is like your 4th of July, we have a national honours, and it's a 2-year process. And so in September 1999, I got an email from the Governor General, who represents the Queen, who, we're still under the Queen anyway. Got an email from the Governor General's office saying, "You've been nominated for this award. Will you accept the nomination?" And I printed it out. I hit print and went to my wife's office at the other end of the house. And I had this piece of paper in my hand. I put it in front of her. I said, "Do you know anything about this?" And she said, "Oh, yeah. Been meaning to mention that." She had been working quietly with the guy who nominated me, providing all the information he needed. And it was a 2-year process to actually get it over the line. Yeah, so it's a big deal. And just little old me, like, a huge honor, really amazing.
Congratulations. I think that's amazing. Now, also, you hold the first ever Global Speaking Fellow designation.
Yes. Yeah,
now, tell me about that.
So in the professional speaking industry, we have a thing called the Certified Speaking Professional, CSP. That's a worldwide designation. And there's probably about 10% of the professionals who speak have that. And then globally, we created a thing called the Global Speaking Fellow, which is for those who speak internationally. And so it recognizes my prowess as a speaker out, all over the place. So I speak not only in Australia, but across Asia, and I've spoken in the US and the UK and in Europe, and, so it just, it recognizes my ability. But, and I got to share this little secret with you. I got the first ever. It was awarded alphabetically. And so, God bless the alphabet. And so because my name's Adams, I got the first one. We handed out 20, to kind of kick it off.
Right.
And so.
But technically you were number one.
It's the truth.
That's amazing. That's amazing. All right. Well, let's talk about your book. I see it in your background.
Yeah.
You wrote The DNA of Business Relationships. There you go. Show it off. Okay. So one of the reasons I reached out to you before I even knew you had the book I'd obviously seen your profile. And when I did my doctorate, in relationship building techniques between buyers and suppliers.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so when I saw your profile, I had like this moment where I was like, there's somebody else out there who is just as fascinated about this process.
Yeah.
So, and then when I started digging into you, I realized you had written this book, The DNA of Business Relationships. So tell me the genesis of how the book came about and why you felt this was needed.
Well, it's interesting. It's a long story, but I'll try and make it really short. The house I live in,
all the time in the world. Go ahead.
The house I live in, I built myself. Me and my 70-year-old apprentice, my dad, and we built it by relationship. And it all just happened organically at the time. And I'll give you, for example, I at the time I worked in the tax office, and I was on a plane flying to Canberra. Sat beside this guy, me being me. I said, hello, my name's Lindsay. And, we introduced ourselves. And I said, what do you do? And he said, I'm a state sales manager for Austral Bricks. And I went, bricks? And we started talking about bricks, how you make them, what goes into it, blah, blah, blah. And we chatted away for a good hour and a half. When the plane landed, he stood up, he opened up the locker, got his briefcase out, and he gave me his business card. And he said, when you're ready, call me. And, I had this naive look come over my face. He said, when you're ready to buy your bricks, call me, I'll look after you. I went, oh. And so I came home, told my wife the story. We looked through their range. We decided what brick we liked. We went to see him. And I said, I think I'll have that brick there. And he went, no, you don't want that brick there. You want this brick here. And I said, but this brick here is the most expensive in the range. And he said, I said I'd look after you. And Sharon, those bricks fell off the back of the factory. We got them, I swear, at cost price or near enough to. It was, and so that was one. And then my kids, I've got a daughter and a son. My little boy at the time was in kindergarten. And I was at a kindergarten function one night. One of the dads came up to me and said, I hear you're building your own house. I said, yes, I am. He said, what sort of roof are you going to put on? I said, oh, I'm going to do corrugated iron. He went, great, when you're ready, call me. And same naive look. And he said, you do know I deliver roofing iron for a living. Well, I didn't. Anyway, he supplied the roofing iron again. I swear it cost, I think it fell off the factory.
Right.
Now, at the time, I thought, well, isn't this interesting? But, umpteen years later, I'm now a professional speaker, and I'm talking about doing business with other people. And I started to think back on these experiences, and it occurred to me that there's an essence, there's a reason. Like, why did that guy on the plane want to help me out? Why did that dad at the kindergarten want to help me out? It was something to do about it with our relationship and the engagement we'd had. So I sat down and unpacked what happened, and I wrote the book. And so that's the genesis of the book. And in the book, I tell the story of how I built the house. And of course, that's kind of the backbone, the thread. And then I've got a lot of other stuff, of course.
Right.
But, there's getting into relationship with people. It's not that hard. You just got to know the system. And a lot of people go to business events, they go networking, and they're terrified. They don't know what to say, how to engage with other people. And again, so what I did, I tried to get my thoughts on paper to make it easier for those people.
Well, okay, that's a perfect segue. Let's talk about networking, because you say one of the biggest mistakes someone makes is confusing networking with selling.
Yes, indeed. Now, a lot of people go networking thinking that they're going to sell something. They're going to meet someone and sell them something. That's never going to happen. It's relationship first, sales second. Mm-hmm. I went to a networking event at my Chamber of Commerce, and I met this guy, and I said, hello, Bob, I'm Lindsay. And Bob said, Lindsay, what do you do? And I said, oh, I'm a professional speaker. I speak at training seminars and conferences. I do a bit of coaching. We talked a little about what I do. And he said, oh, So if you do training, you must you must have training manuals. I said, yes, as a matter of fact, I do. And then he launched. Great. It turns out Bob was a printer. I could print your material. I can do it in black and white. I can do it in color. I can bind it. I can staple it. I can glue it. I could deliver it to the venue. I can. Sharon, my head was spinning. I hardly knew the guy's second name, let alone his first, and he's already trying to sell me something. So he had gone straight to sales without any effort to connect with me and build a relationship. And so what do you think my chances of doing business with Bob were? Well, in my mind, a big round 0, because there was no effort to get to know me. And, you know, you've got to have some sort of meaningful conversation or connection with the person before you can even begin to talk selling.
Right.
Unless, of course, they come up and say, hey, Lindsay, I hear you do blah. Can I buy one of them? That's a different situation. And so relationship first, sales second. So if you meet someone at a business event and you have a meaningful conversation, and I'm always thinking when I'm talking to someone, I'm thinking, can I do business with this person? Or if I can't, could someone in my key 4, and we'll come back to that in a minute, could someone in my key 4 do business with this person? And if the answer is yes, I'll keep talking to them. Now, this sounds mercenary, but anyway, just go with me. If I don't think I can do business with them, and I don't think any of my buddies can do business with them, I'm going to stop talking to them. Because, you know, it's lovely to meet someone, but if you're going to a networking event, the idea is you want to meet and connect with people that you may do business with somewhere down the track. And so I'm going to say, well, Sharon, lovely chatting with you. This is a networking function. I'm going to go and network with someone else, and off I go. Now, I'm not going to be rude. I'm not going to cut them off, but I want to, you know, I'm going to spend just the right amount of time to figure out, is this person somewhere in my target market?
Right. Now, I want to stop you just for a second because we are going to get to the key 4, but I just want to say, you know, I spent my whole career in purchasing. I have been a purchasing executive my whole life. And there is no bigger pet peeve for me when somebody gets a meeting, and not to brag, but it can be tough to get a meeting with me because at a certain level, you just don't have the time. You get a meeting, they come in, and the very first thing they say is, what projects are you working on that I can help you with?
Yeah.
And, you know, right off the bat, I kind of shut down a little bit because I know for them, this is not a networking or a relationship building event. This is a hard sell event.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I wish more people would listen to you speak and understand you have to build the relationship first.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't care, you know, even if it is a sales appointment, I will always spend time with relationship first. I met, I'm in a networking group here in Brisbane, in Australia, where I live. I went to a networking event. I met an accountant, and I said to him, and this is my standard line, hey, gee, his name was Alan. I said, hey, Alan, you know, I think there's a bit of synergy between what you do and what I'm doing. Would you be open to discussing that at some stage? You know, could we have a cup of coffee and meet up and talk about that? And he went, yeah, I'm open to that. And so we actually arranged to meet at his office. And when we got there, it turns out that Alan is born in the same year as me. We were born a month apart. He had, my parents are now, you know, long gone, sadly, but none of us last forever. His parents are gone. And so we had this amazing conversation about our little life journey together and the similarities between us. And I got to tell you, Sharon, that just, you know, I was there for an hour. I think we spent 20, maybe 30 minutes talking personal stuff. But boy, oh boy, did that cement the relationship. And then when we finally circled around to business, Alan was ready to engage. And he and in fact, true story, I'm going back this morning to follow up to talk about what we're going to do together. So always relationship first.
Always. Always. People want to do business with people they like.
Absolutely.
So, get to know me, get to know the people before you jump into the hard sale. Okay, let's move on to, you already mentioned it. So let's talk about, who is your key for? What is your key for?
Yeah, so this is a concept I wrote about in my book, The DNA of Business Relationships, how to engage, expand, and energize relationships. You can buy it on Amazon for all of our listeners. The key for is a really simple concept. I'm a big networker, and I've got a network, and I like to support my network. And I came up with this concept called the key for. So imagine, I'm going to hold up my hand now. So this is you, you're the thumb, and then you've got 4 other people, and the palm of my hand here is my target market. And so I'm going to find there's me and 4 other people, and we all share the same target market, but we don't compete with each other. And so, for our listeners now, think about other people that you know who work with the same people that you want to work with, but don't compete with you, and invite them, have a meeting with them and say, hey, are you open to getting more business? Now, there are very few people who will answer that question with a no. So are you open to getting more business? Well, yes, Lindsay, of course I am. Great. I've got a great idea. I think we could help each other grow our businesses. Okay. And so I explained the key for concept. So let's talk about me in conference speaking. I talk about how to build and leverage relationships. I've got a buddy who does just straight sales training. I've got someone who does leadership. I've got someone who does team building. I've got someone who does motivation. We can all work with the same customer, speak at their annual conference, run training seminars and workshops for them, coach their staff, and we don't compete.
Right.
And so if I go and speak at a conference, I walk off stage and the client comes and shakes my hand and says, oh, Lindsay, you're amazing. That was a great job. Well, I hope that's what they say. And I'll say something like this. Well, thank you, Sharon. A quick question. You're going to run this event again next year, aren't you? Oh, yeah. Well, look, I've got a couple of buddies who I think would be perfect for this audience. How about I connect you with them and save you a lot of trouble trying to find the right speaker? And they go, oh, would you? Now, straight away, I've got my key for on the inside track. So for those of us, for your listeners, think about who's my target market, and then who works that same market but doesn't compete with me. Now, here's the tricky bit. Target market is a really critical piece here, Sharon. I've often asked people from stage, when I'm speaking at a conference, to write a sentence and describe their target market. And a lot of people say, oh, I can work with anyone. Well, yes, maybe you could. But here's the thing. Imagine a dartboard. Now, what happens on a dartboard? There's that little circle in the middle. What happens when you hit a dart on that one, on the bullseye, Sharon? What happens?
You score. You win.
You get a big score.
Yeah.
Now, think about this. If you've got your target market really crystal clear, you can do business with the bullseye people every time. And those people are the ones who bring you the greatest joy. They're the easiest to work with, and they bring you the most money. Excuse me. Now, imagine this. So on a dartboard, when you throw the dart and you hit somewhere out toward the edge, what do you get? Well, you still get a score,
right,
but it's not as big. It's not as big. And so think about this. If your target market, if you can get your key for to bring you the customers in your bullseye region, then you're going to earn more money, work with the people who bring you joy and who are easy to work with. Now, and if you get an outer ring shot, they bring you a customer that doesn't quite fit your target market. Well, then you have the choice of saying, oh, look, I'm really busy at the moment. I can't fit you in. Let me refer you on to someone else who can help you, and give them to one of your competitors.
Right.
It's okay. It's okay to say no occasionally. Now, if you've got no work on, sure, work with them, embrace them, but it's better to work with the bullseye people who are going to, as I say, bring in the most money, make it easy for you to work with them. And so that whole key for concept is really simple. Now, see, here's my key for here, but then you can have another key for off with this person here, and then another, and then another, and then another. So your network, you know, can just become exponential. And so you could say to someone in your key for, well, Sharon, I'm looking for someone to help me with, you know, blah. And Sharon goes, oh, I know just the person. They're in my, you know, and so very quickly your network becomes even bigger through the connections that everybody has.
Right. Now, I know, no,
Powerful.
it is great. Some of the biggest jobs that I have been awarded has been, I didn't know it was called a key for, but has come from that relationship that I built, that I at the time I couldn't see what they were going to do for me, but I liked working with them.
Sure.
And then the next thing you know, somebody out there asked them, do you know somebody who can do this? And they referred me, and it was, you know, and then I was thrilled.
So, you know, that question, one of my business friends called me up one day, Lindsay, you're a man about town, you know lots of people. Yeah. My daughter's, she's HR qualified, she's got a degree, she's in a job, she hates the job, her boss is nasty. Do you know of anybody who's looking for someone that she could work for? And I said, oh, Jack, oh, mate, look, off the top of my head, no, but I'll keep my ear to the ground for you. Sharon, the next day, I got his daughter, Catherine, a job.
Wow.
And so you just never know what happens in your network. And if you just keep in touch, and here's the other thing. You own one of these, don't you?
I do.
A mobile phone?
Yes.
A cell phone? Of course you do. And all of our listeners do as well. Pick it up, and I challenge everyone, go to the contacts now and start scrolling through the contacts. How many have you got? Well, in my phone, I know there's 2,000, right? Social scientists tell us that everybody knows at least 250 people. How often are you talking to those 250? Or how often are you talking to the people in your network who are closer into you? You know, you've got to keep in touch. You've got to let them keep you in the forefront of their mind. And so that when an opportunity comes, they think of you. And so networking is not just about building a relationship to sell people something. Sometimes it's about just having a relationship for those moments when, as you described, do you know someone who, and you go, yes, I do. And, you know, that could be you at some stage. You could be the one who's being referred.
Right. Do you believe more now than ever, it is not what you know, but who you know?
Yeah.
You know,
absolutely.
I think I remember my parents saying that to me, and I never really understood it. But in this day of social media and quick access, it really is important on who you know.
So, you know, let me circle back to the book. When I started building the house, which I write about in the book, the first thing I did is I went to my eldest brother. Now, my eldest brother is a civil design draftsman, so he designs roads and drainage for a living. And I said, I think I'm going to build my own house. Who do you know? And he said, oh, I got the perfect guy who'll draw the plan for you. And then my neighbor across the road was an electrician. I spoke to him, and then he referred me to some people in his network. My cousin, who I grew up next door to, now I'm the youngest of 5 boys, no girls in our family. My sister is my cousin. She lived next door. My uncle lived next door. So we grew up together. She's 6 months younger than me. I went to her. Her husband's a carpenter. and in fact, her husband, Phil, he was such a blessing to me in the process. He would come out on the weekends and inspect what Dad and I had been up to. And some days he'd come out and he'd be going, Lindsay, what did you do that for? And then other days he'd say, you guys, he said, I've got a third-year apprentice who couldn't do what you did. But the thing is, I just tapped into my network and asked the question, who do you know who? And pretty much everyone who came on site was known to me in some way, shape or form. There's a couple of outliers there. You know, I had a guy from a plumbing supplies place just drive in one day, and we just engaged in conversation. He said, I'm looking for the builder. That's me. He said, oh, so you're a chippy. And in Australia, chippy it's a carpenter, right? It's a slang term. And I said, no, I'm public servant. And he said, oh, is that the chippy there? I'm pointing at my dad. And I went, no, that's my dad. And he said, who's the tradesman on site? And I said, that's probably you. And he was just, again, I engaged with him. And he said to me, oh, Lindsay, could I give you a quote for your plumbing supplies? I said, well, look, you can, but you're going to have to sharpen your pencil because I've already got some pretty good prices. And I was being cheeky, right?
Right.
And he said, oh, no worries, mate, I'll look after you. He got in his car and drove out. And Dad climbed down off the roof at the time and he said, well, I didn't think you had any prices on plumbing. I went, actually, I don't. But
Right, that doesn't hurt. Yeah.
That guy came back. He gave me the best price. I showed the quote to my plumber, and my plumber said, oh, I don't know how you do this, Lindsay. I can't buy some of this stuff this cheap. And so, but he got on board with the story, Sharon. It was the relationship.
Right. You connected.
Yeah.
Yeah, you connected. All right. So I want to ask you, I watched some of your YouTube videos. I thought they were fascinating. I want to ask you, what is a high touch society?
Oh, okay. So I actually, that video comes from an event I spoke in South Africa, and it was a group of amazing people from around the world gathered, and we were sponsored by this philanthropist to come together and create a speech on reconciliation and then take it out to the world. And we live in a very high-tech society. Everyone's got one of these glued to their hand these days. And I tell the story in that video. We used to have this lovely tradition, Friday night family night. I've got 2 kids. My kids are married now. I've got grandchildren now, 4 of them. Woohoo, I'm blessed. At the time, there was just the kids, right? So the kids came around Friday night. We're sitting in the kitchen. My wife is preparing the meal, and I hear her say, oh, should I get my iPhone out? And I looked up, and there's my daughter and her husband looking at their phone, and there's my son and his wife looking at their phone, and I too am playing with my phone. No one's talking to each other. And I looked around and thought, whoa, what's going on here? This is Friday night family night. We're supposed to be engaging as a family. And so I spoke about the concept that we have to put the tech aside and become a high touch society. And that, I don't mean necessarily physical touch, but I mean connecting,
Right.
Conversing touch, relationship touch. And of course, in our house, anybody who comes into the house, you get a hug whether you need it or not. And it's something I learned actually from my travels in the US. Everybody hugs, and it's the most wonderful way to connect. That warm body connection. In Australia, we kiss as well. You kiss strangers. I remember talking to a business friend in the US, and she was just staggered that you would kiss somebody who was wasn't family.
Right.
And I just mean, it's like a peck on the cheek. But so, I talked about the concept that we have to actually become a high touch society rather than a high tech society. And I think we've got to focus in on the relationships and remember when we're with people that we have to engage with that person, not with our device. I mean, how many times, and think about, question for you and your listeners, how many times have you been at an event, a business event, and you're talking with someone and they're talking to you and they're going, doing something on their phone?
Mm-hmm.
Wrong. Put it in your pocket, put it in your handbag. Just, concentrate on the person.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I think I learned several years ago, I was becoming one of those people that always has your phone in your hand, is kind of always scrolling for the next email. And I think maybe one of my children even said, Mom, it's really pretty rude. Don't take your phone to the meeting because it says you're waiting for something better to come along. And I think, it was a hard lesson to learn.
Yeah. And think about this, when you're engaging with someone for the first time, look them in the eye and listen and pretend as if this is the best conversation you're having all day long. The number of times I've been to an event and I'm talking with someone and you can see their eyes, they're scanning the room. They're looking over your shoulder to see who else is in the room that they can talk to. And I'm thinking, well, do you value my conversation or not?
Right.
And so you really got to focus in on them 100%.
Well, I have one more question for you, and it's a little bit of a broad question, but I thought you might have a really good take on it. Is how do you think this technology has changed our face-to-face communication? What are your thoughts?
That's a really interesting question. We're coming out of a pandemic. We've had such an impact in our lives because of COVID, and initially that really shut down our ability to connect with other people. But because of technology, it actually enhanced our ability to connect with other people. And so when COVID hit, and it's really ironic, I was in Adelaide in Australia at our National Professional Speakers Australia annual convention. And across the weekend, everyone's phones are going ping, 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 ping. And it almost became a competition. How many bookings have you had cancelled or postponed because of COVID? And it was quite scary, but it was kind of nice to be amongst family, if I can put it that way. Your trusted industry buddies. And we were all together to kind of go, it's okay, we'll survive. But we came home and I had, cancellation after cancellation. But what I did, and this is what I think is the benefit of the society we live in now, because of Zoom, and you and I are talking on Zoom now, and of course that company's gone berserk.
Right.
For me, it used to be Skype or the telephone. I'm a great keeper in toucher, and I wrote about that concept in my book. And I learned this from my eldest brother. My eldest brother, Neville, keeps in touch with everyone. He writes letters, he sends emails, he phones people up, he keeps in touch. And so what I did when COVID started, I kept in touch. And I think this is a critical piece, and it's one of the benefits of technology now. It's so much easier to keep in touch. And so I would just call people up and say, how you going? And I didn't ring them up and say, I'm desperate for work. Have you got any?
Right.
I would simply say, how are you going? Is there anything I can do to support you? And sometimes we just have a lovely conversation and woe is me. And other times they would say, oh, Lindsay, if you could come in and just talk to our staff, that would be amazing. Or we do an online event or whatever.
Right.
But I've now got people that I stay in touch with all around the world via this technology. And I think that's the really good part. The really dangerous part is what we've already talked about, is that you've got this thing in your hand and you give it too much attention at the expense of relationships.
Right. You know what, Lindsay, thank you so much for doing this and for being so open about these conversations. I really feel like my listeners are going to love listening to what you had to say. I hope I can convince them all to go out and buy the book. I really am grateful for doing this.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. And if any of you listeners wanted to get in touch, I would love to hear from them. It's really simple. You can find me on LinkedIn, or you can go to my website. It's really complicated. Listen carefully. It's lindsayadams.com. And you can send me an email, lindsay@lindsayadams.com. I would love to connect. I would love to create a relationship.
I appreciate it. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good day.